name is Brian Pinkowski. In this video, I'll be discussing the subject of anti-corruption. This is the second video in the series describing anti-corruption and its role in society. In part 1, we discussed the definition of corruption, its impact on civilization, and how a corrupted object has ceased to survive in its original form. In this video, we'll discuss how the term applies to individuals, groups, and societies. With individuals, we can have internal and external sources of corruption. These will weaken our ability to survive into the future. Let's take a look at the corruption of groups. In addition to having 3 or more members, a group has 4 primary elements that create a group: an identity, some common purpose, an intent to go into the future, and an ability to withstand attacks on their group or purpose. Even the weakest of groups has these characteristics. Let's look at this group of people waiting for the bus. That is their identity. Their shared purpose is to ride the bus. Their intention to go into the future together extends only until the bus comes. They have some limited ability to maintain that purpose if threatened. The same thing is true of other groups. Each has varying strength of identity, purpose, future, and defense capability against internal and external threats. Examining a group, you can determine which of the 4 characteristics is weak and therefore the easiest targets of corruption. As the purpose gets weak, parts of the group will begin developing their own purposes, or leaving the group altogether. Eventually, the group can no longer survive. Composed of many smaller groups, societies also have identities, purposes, future intentions, and a willingness to defend that future. Where societies often weaken quickly is in the defense of their identity and purposes. Sometimes the purposes of a group become corrupted because those purposes have failed to be disseminated through education. We'll take a look at the evolution of society's purposes in a separate video. Like individuals and groups, societies take action to support their survival. As society faces imminent threats to its survival, it uses organized violence and soldiers to prevent that death. After the immediate threat of death of society has been prevented, people in a society will insist on developing systems to control certain behaviors that cannot be tolerated. Criminal law is the statement by society that certain behavior cannot be tolerated, and it is enforced by police and the courts. For example, murder, theft, physical assault, and other serious crimes lead to the death of society and are therefore forbidden in criminal law. The crime of corruption, as it is commonly understood, is typically discussed as a form of theft from the public. This, of course, threatens all of society and is included in criminal law almost everywhere. In addition to those criminal behaviors that cannot be tolerated, there's also the need for people to have a means to resolve disputes without violence. Civil law provides this protection. Where governments allow their criminal or civil law systems to become corrupt, untrustworthy, or ineffective, criminal organizations will sometimes fill the void and provide their own form of justice to people with civil law disputes. This undermines and bypasses the official government, and society dies as it yields to criminal leadership. Therefore, it is crucial that civil and criminal law systems work effectively. In most governments, the bulk of activity requires administrative policies and procedures, public administration. Failures in public administration create the doorways for the bulk of corruption around the world. Sometimes it's as surprisingly simple as failing to actually have internal control policies. However, most often corruption occurs by the failure to implement the existing policies. These failures create the appearance of illegitimate government and cause the slide down the scale towards the death of society. It happens in no small part because of the weak identity, purpose, and intent to survive at all levels of public administration. Thus, although criminal prosecutions and law enforcement are vitally important to protecting a society from death, it is equally important that government administrators are seen as competent and trustworthy, or the government risks losing legitimacy and opens the door to decay of society. The key to anti-corruption is having sensible government policies and having courageous and hardworking government managers that insist on policies being followed. In the coming videos, I'll discuss the role of the media in revealing corruption and the collapse of institutions that become corrupt. Remember to subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of the updates.